And I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad. The videos that I put the most effort into are the ones that perform the worst. That being said, it should come as no surprise that I'm a massive fan of Tears for Fears, considering I am incredibly pretentious. Tears for Fears is very good. The discography from start to finish, I enjoy. But there is a reason why we are here today, and that reason is to rank all of the Tears for Fears albums and see which one is the most pretentious. This is gonna be fun. I have no idea how this video is gonna be received, so let's just get this show on the road and see what happens. Let's find out together. I'm gonna do this slightly different than the other ranking video. It's the 2 attempts at ranking the Bee Gees albums. I'm gonna do it differently this time. I'm gonna go in chronological order. I'm gonna talk about the albums and discuss them in chronological order. So it's a surprise what my rankings are at the end, even though it probably won't be a surprise at the end. Let us begin with where it began. We are gonna, and once again, and the rules. The rules for this video is that it has to be a studio album. No extras, no B-sides, no live albums, if there even is a Tears for Fears live album, I doubt it. Anyway, let's begin. Okay, so, Tears for Fears began in 1983 with, The Hurting. And, oh my god, this phone pisses me off so much. Tears for Fears began in 1983 with the album The Hurting. Yes, very good stuff. If I had to describe, just like a rapid fire, just tell you what like Tears for Fears stands for, it's that feeling that you get when you're so sad and you're so depressed that you can't help but dance. You must dance. Dancing is the only way to solve the problem of your pain. And that is what I would describe Tears for Fears. First album is The Hurting. It starts off with The Hurting. And it's a very interesting song. Like the moods of these first 2 albums especially, just like the tone and the style, it's just such it's a contradiction. It's like it's a contradiction. It's just not what you'd expect from a group that's trying to like air out their inner demons and the suffering of their childhood and whatnot. This album starts off with the song The Hurting. I really like this song. It's catchy. That's the biggest thing about Tears for Fears is that they know how to write hooks and they know how to create a sound around a hook. And with The Hurting, it's just a very easy introduction. It eases you into the album, and I like it a lot. I would give the song The Hurting 7 out of 10. Song number 2 is, interestingly, the song that brought Tears for Fears back from the brink of extinction. Song number 2 on The Hurting is Mad World, which was covered in the early 2000s by Gary Jules for some movie that I've never seen. And the weird thing is that this version is objectively better, but like, tonally, you'd think that the Gary Jules version is the one that everyone would relate to the most. It's like the Disturbed cover of Sound of Silence. It completely tonally shifts the song into what, like a modern day retelling, and it completely like disregards the context and the statement that the original group was trying to make. Which is the same case in Mad World, which has just wild experimentation as far as the sound is concerned. It's like not at all, like if you go into this after listening to the Gary Jules version of Mad World and that is your introduction to Tears for Fears, I'm sorry. But there are some songs that would work in the future, in the way distant future. And actually, I will say, the next song is an interesting one. As for Mad World, I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Wildly experimental, incredibly catchy. The lyrics, dark. I appreciate that. I am an emo. I am something of a goth myself. I appreciate the darkness of the lyrics. But moving on to the next one. I think this is my favorite song off of this album. Song number 3 is Pehl Shelter. And it is a largely acoustic guitar-driven song that reminds me so much of Death in June. If you didn't know, Death in June is one of my favorite artists for like the last 10 years. And at this point it's just like one guy. But the thing is that Pehl Shelter sounds so much like what Death in June would become, you know, a couple of years after the beginning of Death in June. And the interesting thing is that Death in June and Tears for Fears released their debut albums in 1983. The correlations are insane. So it's like, yeah, I'm not desperately surprised that an English band and a German band would probably sound pretty similar in the 80s, or at least like would eventually sound pretty similar. But Pehl Shelter is acoustic driven. It's got a good hook. Like I said, the hooks is just Tears for Fears' specialty is writing hooks, I think. Next song, I give Pehl Shelter 10 out of 10. I love that song. Ideas as Opiates is the 4th song. I don't actually remember this one specifically. I think this is the one with the heavy bass line. One of these songs has a very heavy bass line and is like kind of stripped back. I think that's this one. Is that there's a really deep bass and it's kind of a stripped back song. I love the sound, but obviously it hasn't stuck in my head quite as much as the other songs on this album. So I'm gonna give Ideas as Opiates a 6 out of 10 because I like it conceptually, but it obviously isn't enough to keep my attention. Memories Fade is a really good one. I really enjoy this one. Once again, the sound is very nice. It sounds a lot like, it's got the experimentation of Mad World, kind of. And I just like the sound. I'm gonna give this one 7 out of 10. Suffer the Children, I'd say, is probably the worst song on this album, mostly because it's just got singing children the entire time. And very few things are worse than a chorus that is entirely just singing children. So 3 out of 10, terrible. The rest of this album, there's another, like, probably one of the bigger songs on this album is Change, song number 8, but once again, I don't actually remember that. It didn't catch me. I remember Watch Me Bleed and Start of the Breakdown a lot more. But for the B-side of this album, the biggest problem I think for Tears for Fears is that they have very strong A-sides, but the B-sides are very lacking. And that is no different on this album. But that is the first album, The Hurting. Very good. I really like this album, and AllMusic.com gives it 4.5 stars out of 5. I'm using AllMusic so that I can get the track lists in front of me for the CDs that I don't have, which is not the case for the next one. The next album by Tears for Fears was popped out right, during, the peak of their popularity or something, and they came back right away with a second album that I enjoy very much. This is Songs from the Big Chair, and the Big Chair, man, that chair is big. They weren't lying, because this is probably their biggest album. This is probably their best-selling album. This is probably their most successful album on a worldwide scale, and there is a good reason for that. It's very good. And this is the signature Tears for Fears sound. When someone thinks of Tears for Fears, just like in the global zeitgeist, this is what they're talking about. This album is great. It starts out with Shout, which is just fantastic. Just a fantastic opener. It's very hectic. It's the emotion in this album, I think, is stronger than ever. I very much enjoy Shout. It's very fun. It's, the instrumentation is very good, and it's got that, you know, synth pop grounding that Tears for Fears is known for. I very much enjoy Shout. Now, song number 2 is The Working Hour, and this was an interesting one, because when I first heard this, I was like, wait a minute. I was going through I went through all the albums, just listened to them all the way through over and over for this video. That's what I did for the Bee Gees too, just for clarification's sake. And this song, like, right coming after Shout, it always really took me out of the experience. I was like, wait a minute, I'm still listening to Tears for Fears? Because The Working Hour sounds great. Saxophone solos galore. The saxophone was very much used in this album, and I really enjoy it, but it kind of took me out of the experience because I'm like, wait, this is Tears for Fears? I think this song should have been on the B-side, even though it's really good, but like for the flow of the album, just like listening to it through, because that's why I fucking released albums. That's why I put my music onto physical releases. That's the way that I experience music the best. That's how I experienced music for like the first 15 years of my life, was using CDs and just digging through like pawn shops trying to find anything that's actually listenable because Walmart didn't have anything good. But that's the reason why I like listening to albums all the way through. Because that's just what I did my entire childhood. And I love The Working Hour. It sounds very good. I'll give it 8 out of 10. But I think it would have flowed better had it come on the B-side. The next song on it, song number 3, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, is the quintessential Tears for Fears songs. It's the one that everyone knows about. The first song by Tears for Fears that I ever heard was Everybody Wants to Rule the World on the Saints Row 2 soundtrack. So that just tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, everyone knows this song. Nothing that I say is going to make a difference on anyone's opinion. 10 out of 10, fantastic song. Song number 4 is Mother's Talk, which is incredibly catchy. It's very similar to, I'd say, like, you know, like The Hurting or Pale Shelter. Is very, very catchy with kind of unusual subject matter. The band Tears for Fears are very far left. Very, very far left, unfortunately. So, but hey, almost everyone that's big in the music industry is very far left. So we're just gonna have to roll with it. We're just gonna have to roll with it. But yes, Mother's Talk is fine. It's good, it sounds good, I enjoy it. It flows very nicely after Everyone Wants to Rule the World, as a matter of fact. So if we're taking a look at the album as a package, once again, great follow-up to Everyone Wants to Rule the World. But like I said, the problem with Tears for Fears is that it kinda slows down once you get to the second half of the album, and that's where we're at right now. Song number 5 is the start of the B-side. The song is I Believe. I don't remember a thing about this song. Very, very undersold. Could have been a lot more interesting. Could have been a lot more striking. The next song after that is officially Broken, which flows into song number 7. Broken by itself really doesn't say much, but when you combine it with the next song, it makes sense. So it's like one of those, like, it's kind of like an instrumental interlude that you see on the B-sides of a lot of albums that kind of leads you into the next song. So by itself, it really doesn't mean a whole lot, but once you combine it with the next song, head over heels. I fucking adore this song. It's like the heaviest song on this entire album, and it's catchier than all hell. This is the song, one of them anyway, that I find myself singing for like several days after listening to it. It's brilliant sound design. It's kind of lyrically vapid in a sense. It's just like they were it's just kind of like an I Am the Walrus style, just pure nonsensical lyrics that almost makes sense, but I very much enjoy it. The final song on this album is Listen, and unfortunately I didn't do a great job of listening because I don't remember much of this song. I think this one's kind of a bit of a meandering song. The problem that Tears for Fears has is that if their songs get too long, they have a problem of having way too long, just letting stuff drag out. They really get into it. They really get into it and drag out the experience. Just flush it out as much as possible. And this is one of those songs that could have been shortened by like 2 minutes and it would have made it better. But all in all, it's very difficult to beat this album. Like this is it right here. And yes. And yes, good album. Good album, very good. So, this one came out in 1985, right? Yes. So, it was 2 years between The Hurting and their second album, Songs from the Big Chair. Well, the thing is that Tears for Fears took a bit of time off, and really put together their next album, 1989, 4 years after Songs from the Big Chair. They came out with an absolutely legendary album. It's The Seeds of Love. Everything is possible when you're sowing the seeds of love, and everything is possible when you're putting together an absolute work of art such as this one. Now, you'll take a look at the cover art and you'll see, wow, there sure is a lot going on there. This really does give high civilization vibes from the Bee Gees. And in a way, it kind of like, it is a lot like High Civilization from the Bee Gees. It's a bit on the experimental side, and it is not the traditional Tears for Fears sound that you've come to expect from the first two albums. It's almost a complete departure, actually. There's very little in the way of synth. There's very little in the way of like dance beats. It's a very, pardon my language, it's a very urban album. The late 80s were very, very unusual. And they started things off with what a lot of Tears for Fears fans will say is the best Tears for Fears song, which is Woman in Chains. Can't imagine what that song's about. Yeah, I think Woman in Chains is an example of a near perfect song. I don't know how you could do much better. It would be difficult. The instrumentation is perfect. The build-up is perfect. The sound is perfect. I wouldn't say it's much of a hook, but like just the overall package. 6.5 minutes of pure perfection. The only problem is that they can't ever perform it because it features Oleta Adams. It features Oleta albums. One of those very rare multi-artist like collaborations that are like on a main album. You didn't see this very much. I mean, modern day, you can't go 5 minutes without seeing feature. You can't navigate the iTunes goddamn store because you don't actually see anything from the artists you care about. It's all just features on like singles from all over the planet. There's just, 10 different albums just sitting there. And they're not even albums, they're just fucking singles. And they don't even, they feature maybe 30 seconds of the artist that you're actually looking for. No, this was actually a good feature. This was a great feature. Oleta is perfect for this song. The voice is absolutely perfect. Captures the tone magnificently. I mean, I'm telling you, man, they couldn't have done a better job of doing this song, Woman in Chains. The only problem that I have is that it's a bit on the insufferable side. The problem with Tears for Fears is that they are incredibly pretentious. I think the lyrics are it's broken. I think the lyrics are available in this booklet if it will come out. There it comes, kinda. Here we are. Yeah, remember when things came with booklets? So yeah, like, I'll tear it apart, but I won't understand. I will not accept the greatness of man. Oh dear. Yeah, it's like like woman rights song or something. It's like feminism, but in the 80s, and like they maybe had a point back then, but like fucking 45 years later, the context has changed, and it just comes off as pretentious now. I'm sure this was a very massive political statement back in the day, but like today it really doesn't capture anything but cringe, unfortunately. So, but I mean, apart from that, apart from it just being just a fucking, I mean, the music video is really good. Music video for this is really good. It's incredibly on the nose, but like, being on the nose is kind of Tears for Fears' specialty. Now, I will say, following that up with a song titled The Bad Man Song is very, very interesting. I don't know what happened there, but like, when I say that Tears for Fears will go on for way too long and overstay their welcome, I'd say this is one of those times. Bad Man Song has a great build-up once again. Once again, the build-ups of these songs are very good, very well done build-ups. But like, it goes on, they could have cut an entire verse from this, honestly. Honestly, they could have cut an entire verse from this song, and it still would have been just as good, but like, have you ever seen the movie The Sister Act? Have you ever watched The Sister Act? This song, I feel like, would be very fitting in that. It is, it's once again, very urban. Very, very urban. I think that's, but they were going for that. They were probably going for that, which makes it okay. So, but yeah, I enjoy, it sounds great once again. The build-up's very good. It's just way too long. This did not need to be 8.5 minutes long. I mean, fucking people got mad at Saint Anger for the long song lengths. Good lord, the shortest song on this album is 4.5 minutes long. Like, and like, once again, this is a complete departure from their old sound. Like, if someone who was a fan of Tears for Fears for their, you know, new wave sound, they would have gone into this and been like, what? But yeah. Song number 3 is Sowing the Seeds of Love. Once again, why is it as long as it is? Why is this 6 minutes and 19 seconds long? This is just basically just like, this song's entire purpose is just like sound. Just a wall of sound. It just starts with like very loud drums and it doesn't stop. There's a fucking organ solo in this. There's a trumpet solo in this. It's just, it never ends. They just keep adding instruments. They're just coming in out of the woodwork. It's like a clown car, but an orchestra, you know? It's like, it sounds like, oh, and once again, it sounds great. It's catchy. I enjoy the song, but Jesus, did it really need to be as overblown as it was? How long is this album? According to this, it's only 49 minutes in length. There's 8 songs total. It feels way longer than that, though. It just goes on and on and on. But yeah, but the problem is that I really very much enjoy this. I very much enjoy these first 3 songs in a row. It's, I really love this. But like, for anyone else who, you know, people who don't just, you know, sit and listen to repeating, instruments over and over, you know, it's not good pop music is the problem. The biggest problem with this album is that it's not good pop music. Until you get to song number 4, Advice for the Young at Heart. I adore this song and I kind of hate it because it is the perfect pop song. I mean, this is like right up there with Everyone Wants to Rule the World. Like, this should have been their second biggest song. And because I honestly despise it, because it is the most cutesy, overblown, like, it's not overblown as far as length is concerned, like every other song on this album. It's overblown in, like, they tried, like, this was like basically the How You Remind Me of 1989. They did everything they could to stuff literally glittery, cutesy popness encompassed into a package. And I would say that Advice for the Young at Heart is like the best pop song that they've ever made. I mean, it's honestly perfect. Like, when the chorus starts, it's the "When I think of you," you know, that's perfect. Just an absolutely perfect hook. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. The problem is that once again, the song meanders slightly, and it kind of ends in a, like, kind of muted sense. Kind of like a, I don't want to say whimsical, but like, kind of just like you sit back and you're like, oh. It's trying to make you reflect, and that doesn't fit very well. It like the, you know, tempo slows down, and it's just like, tempo changes are very difficult to pull off. And like, I love the song, I love this entire album. This is honestly my favorite album. It's probably going at the top of the list. But it's, you know, every song on here is great. But the problem is that they're all 9 out of 10s, except for Woman in Chains. They're all 9 out of 10s. There's just something about every song that's keeping it from truly reaching the heights that it could have. Like, if you reworked a couple of these songs, this would probably be a perfect album. Now, here's the one song that you can't rework. Song number 5, the start of the B-side. Imagine that. It's coming to a screeching halt. Standing on the corner of the third world. They are definitely trying to make something. They are trying to make political statements, and it's not working. See, the thing is that Oleta Adams appears in all of the songs on this album. Woman in Chains, Bad Man's Song, Sowing the Seed. I don't think she's in Advice for the Young at Heart, but she's back in Standing on the Corner, and it's like she may as well be a full-fledged member of the band at this point, you know, officially. May as well make it official. But like, yeah, Standing on the Corner of the Third World is just like, yeah, the third world sucks. Wow, sad. I'm white. I have to do something about this. I have to say something about this because I'm white. That's kind of the entire thing. And like, you see, if it was just that, if it was just, you know, the pretentiousness of it, it wouldn't be that bad. But the song is 5.5 minutes long, and it meanders the entire fucking time. It's just like, there is no reason for this to be as long and drawn out as it is. And it's boring. This is the first boring song of the entire album. Bad Man's Song keeps your attention the entire time despite being 8.5 minutes long. Sowing the Seeds of Love keeps your attention, but by the time you get to Standing on the Corner of the Third World, it's completely overstated its welcome. The instrumentation isn't interesting. That's the biggest problem. The instrumentation isn't interesting. The idea is just... it's just college freshman type shit. It's just not interesting. I always skip this song because it's boring, not catchy, and I don't care. Next song is Swords and Knives. I mean, if I were to give Standing on the Corner 2 out of 10, I'd give Swords and Knives 5 out of 10. It's better, but not by much. It's another 6.5 minute long song where nothing happens. And there's not a whole lot in the way of lyrics either. Like, you look at the lyric sheet in here, it's like 10 lines. Well, then again, the next song is even shorter in here, and I really enjoy it. But like Swords and Knives, you know, it's fine. I mean, once again, it's just the B-side of a Tears for Fears album. It's just, it's disappointing. Like, especially after, you know, all the momentum that they had from the A-side, it just kind of comes to a screeching halt as you get to this part of the album, and it just really drags it down. It drags what has been a 9 out of 10 experience, and it just pulls it down. It's just such a big drop-off from the first half. But, the next song, number 7, Year of the Knife. I adore this. It's so good. It's so fucking good. Wow, if I had a nickel for every song about knives in Tears for Fears' Seeds of Love album, I'd have 2 nickels. What and like it's 2 songs in a row about knives. Damn, dude. I mean, I appreciate Sharp Objects as much as the next guy, but come on. Why did both songs have to be about knives? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I really like this song. It does what the first half did really well, which is build up. And like, I feel like even though this song is 7 minutes long, it doesn't waste its time at any point. Like, where standing on the corner and swords and knives falter, and that is just kind of meandering and just like, they're just kind of playing the instruments for the sake of playing the instruments. Year of the Knife feels like it was thought out very well, and it is incredibly catchy. It's got a great driving beat. I mean, it's probably the fastest song of the entire album, probably the highest tempo on the entire album. And it catches your attention and keeps it. They did a great job on this one. I very much enjoy it. Oletta's back again for the chorus. And yeah, I very much enjoy it. It is indeed too late for the young gun to have a simple life. But the problem with it is that it feels like a product of its time. It very much feels like it should be like on the Karate Kid album or something. It is definitely a product of the late 80s. That's probably the biggest problem that I have with this album as a whole, is that besides the fact that it's bloated, overblown, and a bit pretentious, it's also very dated. Very, very dated. Like, you know the exact time period where this album took place. But I very much enjoy Year of the Knife. It picks up all the pieces that were left on the table from the previous 2 songs and brings you back. Brings you back into it. Brings you back into the experience. I adore this song. And then the final song on this album is the shortest song, clocking in at 4 minutes and 26 seconds. This song should have been longer. Of all the songs on this album, this is the one that could have used like an extra verse or another refrain or like a little bit more meat on this final song. Famous Last Words. It's a good song. I enjoy the build-up. Once again, just like the build-ups on these albums, like they definitely started with an idea. And they wanted to make every song on this album to be an experience. I can tell. You can tell. And they definitely knew what they were doing for the most part. This song on an album filled with songs that could have been 2 minutes shorter. This is the one they chose to leave everything on the table. It's a shame. It really is a shame. Famous Last Words is really good. It's quiet. It reminds me a bit of Advice for the Young at Heart. It reminds me of other songs on the album. But like, why didn't they make it longer? That's Sowing the Seeds of Love. It's currently the CD that's playing in my car right now, so that's why I don't have it. And yeah, it's falling apart. Whatever. Anyway, so unsurprisingly, see, the thing is that a lot of bands love to follow up their highest, they're not maybe their most successful, but definitely their best as far as artistic is concerned, because Songs from the Big Chairs obviously perform way better. I hadn't heard a single song off this album until I listened to it for the first time. But I had heard Shout, Mad World, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Head Over Heels. I even heard The Working Hour before I heard anything off of this album. But I still think is their best artistically. It's definitely, being pulled in a couple of different directions, and you can tell that there is artistic tension going on behind the scenes. There is definitely a direction that one member wanted to go and the other did not. And that is, that could not be more obvious on this album. It's very, very much like, it kind of does feel like the climax. And Kurt Smith, I haven't even mentioned Kurt Smith and Roland Orbisol, if that's how you pronounce their names. were the two main guys. That's them. That's Roland, that is Kurt. That is, and this one, Kurt, left the band after sowing the seeds of love. And it was a pretty bad breakup, actually. They have gone on to say, like, they didn't talk to each other for nearly a decade after splitting up at the end of this album. And it's not desperately surprising. Like, you know, you work with someone this long, and the clear creative differentials in this album, you can tell. You can tell that something big was about to happen. And that big thing was a split up. And it took another 4 years for Tears for Fears to come back. But instead of being Tears for Fears, there was only a single tear. The only remaining member, Roland Orbisol, came back in 1993, why'd I put it down? To come back with Elemental. Elemental is the next album that we're going to discuss. Uh-oh. It's a shame, honestly, because I don't really like this album very much. I know I own it, but like, I don't really enjoy it that much. See, the problem with this album is that it's got the same problem that every other Tears for Fears album has. It starts off really well, and then the B-side is like, what are we doing here? Elemental starts off with Elemental, which is, once again, a product of its times. Like, you're really living in the time period when you're listening to a Tears for Fears album. Like, they do not let you forget that it is current year. Current year. Especially once Sowing the Seeds of Love came out. After that, no more timelessness. No more timelessness. You are fully aware of what year it is when you are listening to future Tears for Fears album. I like Elemental. Don't say you're up when you're down. I mean, fair enough, Roland. I guess that is an entirely valid criticism of the modern day 1993. The second song off of this is Cold, which is, I would say, the Static X cover is better. No. Cold is fine. I mean, it's probably the weakest second track on an album that we've had yet. The second track of Tears for Fears albums have been very good. Mad World, The Working Hour, and Bad Man Song. And they follow it up with Cold. Cold, we're so cold. I mean, you can tell, like, there is definitely a void. The biggest thing that you can tell in this album is that there is a void. Something is missing. And that something is Kurt Smith, unfortunately. You can tell. You can tell that he was an important, just to reel in Roland. Roland was a very, very creative man. He had all of the power once Kurt left. And in a way, you have to imagine that this is a true Roland Orzabal experience in this album right here. And I mean, Elemental, Break It Down Again, and Mr. Pessimist. I really enjoy all three of those. I mean, Break It Down Again, song number 3, is probably the best known song from this album for good reason. Once again, the Hook Master. The Hook Masters, Tears for Fears. They did a great job with the hook and Break It Down Again. And then Mr. Pessimist, I think, is probably, I don't know why I like this song, probably because it describes me perfectly, but like, it's got very good, it's kind of a callback. It's kind of a callback to the actual roots of Tears for Fears and Mr. Pessimist. You kind of get a new wave vibe from it. And it's one of the longer songs. Mr. Pessimist is 6 minutes and 16 seconds long, but I think it's my favorite on the album because of, you know, it doesn't meander. It does not meander like the songs in the previous album. It it feels like a solid package in 16 minutes and 16 seconds. But like, I really like those two. Break It Down Again and Mr. Pessimist, I'd say, are the highlights of this album. But after that, oh no. Song number 5 is titled Dog's a Best Friend's Dog. Huh? Oh, wait, what? Yeah, it's, oh boy. And it's just kind of keeps going downhill from there. At this point, this is the hardest album to get through, I think, when I was listening to everything from Tears for Fears to make this video. I think this is the hardest, this is the hardest album to get through. It took me so long to get through the whole thing. Like, it starts off so well. Elemental is good, Cold is not as good, but it's serviceable. Break It Down Again is incredibly catchy, and Mr. Pessimist is like a perfect song for me. But then you get to Dog's a Best Friend's Dog, and like the instrumentation is getting weird, and like the lyrics are getting absolutely just, what are we really doing here kind of level. The next song is Fish Out of Water, which, you know, I feel like while I'm listening to this thing, Gas Giants is number 7. It's an instrumental song, and I'm just like, wait, what? And like, very much unlike the Broken and Head Over Heels combo, this instrumental does not feel at all like it belongs with the next song, which is Power. Power, which is basically like what Tears for Fears stood for, is just like pointing out abuses of power. But Power is just like the heaviest song that they've ever released. And it's just like, oh, my goodness gracious, the compression is strong with this one. Yeah, it kind of comes out of nowhere. This album's kind of just like a real reflective and kind of like easy listening and just kind of like, you know, thinking back on everything and like that kind of thing. And then it hits you with Power and it's like, oh my god, I didn't know that's what we were supposed to be getting out of this album. It's heavy. They could have fucking featured Rob Halford on the song, I'm telling you. Anyway, the next song after this is called Brian Wilson Said. And I'm just like, okay, why? The question that I have for the majority of this album is why? Why did Kurt Smith have to leave and not reel in this madman, this absolute madman? Yeah, the combination of Power and Brian Wilson Said is like just, it's like listening to like a B-side from System of a Down. It's like, this is really the band that brought us Toxicity? It's just like, it's like a complete departure. It's like a completely different band, dude. It's like you're listening to something like, it's genre defying. We'll go with that. That's how I'll describe it. And then the final song is Goodnight Song, which you think would be like a lot like Famous Last Words, which would be really quiet, really smooth, silky vocals. No! It's like, it's kind of just like an alt-rock song. I'm like, wait, why are we dancing? Why is a song about going to sleep so catchy? I don't really like it. It kind of comes off as like tone deaf. It's just like, I don't want to be that guy that like says like, oh, they should have done this and it would have been better. I don't want to kind of be, I don't want to insult the artistic vision of someone. I just tell you how I feel about music, and I feel like this completely missed the target. The second half of this album is not good. Not good. It completely misses not only the target audience of a Tears for Fears fan, both from a new wave era or a Seeds of Love era. It completely misses the mark contextually. Like, and even in a meta sense. Like, I feel like this album should not sound the way that it does on the second half. Once again, Break It Down Again, very good. Mr. Pessimist, very good. Some of the better songs that came out from Tears for Fears. But like, the rest of the album is just like, why? everyone always says that Elemental is the CD that's like the sleeper. It's like, has some of, you know, like the best Tears for Fears that you've never heard. No, 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 no. It's got 2 good songs, and we're gonna leave it at that. Next up, it's still, the 90s. It's still the 90s, and Roland is still being completely and utterly, nothing is stopping this man. No one has come into the studio and has been like, my dude, why? Why any of this? And so, Raoul and the Kings of Spain. Raoul and the Kings of Spain came out in 1995, only 2 years after Elemental. So, Roland is on a roll. He is just like, he is having it. He's feeling it, and he's right back into the studio after releasing Elemental, and he's brought us a Spanish album? No, actually, this has nothing to do with Spain, as it turns out. As it turns out, this album has nothing to do, basically, with Spain, except for maybe the lyrics, kind of. Roll in the Kings of Spain. You see, the craziest part of this album is that when I listened to it the first time, and the first song started, I was listening to the, you know, the chords. He was strumming the chords on an electric guitar, and it's like, is this gonna be like a pop punk album? It sounds like something that, like, you know, The Offspring might have come up with. But no, it's Tears for Fears. And then the lyrics come in, and it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely Tears for Fears. And I would say that this album has a lot less musical experiences. You know, if, like, the entirety of The Seeds of Love was meant to be, like, an experience, this is probably the first album that really goes against the grain as far as, like, an entire package is concerned. It feels like they just went into the studio, started playing, and were like, okay, let's just, let's call it good. Call it good. But, like, actually, the thing is, I really like this album. I really like this album, and for the first time ever in the history of Tears for Fears, I think the B-side is better than the A-side. It starts off with Roll in the Kings of Spain, which is a fantastic opener. It really does set the scene, and it really shows how dynamic Roland's voice is. See, that's the thing, is that both Roland and Kurt Smith are absolutely gifted musicians. They are up there, and like the songwriting category, definitely up there. But Roland especially, I think, has one of the most dynamic voices in, like, the 90s probably, you know? Like, he's got a very dynamic voice. You see, the thing is that when I first went into this, I had no idea that they split up. I had no idea that they split up before this album. I thought they split up after this album, because I was listening to this album, and I mean, there's so many different voices, but it's all Roland. He's got such a wide range, and it's like, I thought it was both of them still. I thought they split up after this album and then reunited after the Gary Giles thing. No, it was all the way back in 1989 that they split up. It's like, and this whole time, like, I listened to this album before I listened to Elemental. It's a lot more clear in Elemental that it's just Roland. But by the time you get to this, it sounds like a Tears for Fears album. It sounds like both of them are in the studio. So Roll of the Kings of Spain, the opener is really good. Falling Down is not great. Less good. Like, 5 out of 10 range. Like, once again, their second song, the second song on the album, really collapsed, you know? Yeah, it's a shame. Secrets is fine. God's Mistake is incredibly lucky, really catchy. Where did Lucky come from? I have no idea where Lucky came from. God's Mistake is very catchy. I really like it. Maybe maybe I was thinking I really like it. So maybe I combined like and catchy. Lucky. Yeah, that's probably what it was. It's very catchy. It's probably like the best hook on the entire album. Once again, Hook Masters, God's Mistake. I mean, not a whole lot of radio stations are gonna play a song called God's Mistake, but it was God's mistake to split up Roland and Kurt. Oh yeah. Now, actually, the next song is Sketches of Pain, which you follow up God's Mistake with Sketches of Pain. Once again, listening to an album in its complete package, it really is like, you kind of sit back and you're like, wow. It's kind of like that Mad World Pale Shelter dynamic. There was a dynamic between those two songs on the first album. And following up God's Mistakes with Sketches of Pain, which is a stripped back, I'm pretty sure it's mainly just an acoustic guitar and a little bit of a beat in the background. But like, I like it. I like it a lot, dude. The 1-2 punch is very good there. I enjoy those two songs back to back. The next song is another one of those transition songs called Los Reyes Catolicos, I think. I've been taking Duolingo Spanish. Will it say how long my streak is without opening it? I've been taking Spanish for, where does it say the streak? Yeah. 125 days. Dude. I've been taking Spanish for that long with Duolingo, and I still cannot pronounce this shit. But this is just like, I actually really like the transition. You have to be listening to the album all the way through for it to make any sense. But the way that it just pulls itself into the next song, which is Sorry, which I enjoy a lot. See, the thing about Tears for Fears is that they don't get heavy that often. Like, once again, the heaviest song that they made before The Seeds of Love was Head Over Heels. And like, that song's like a piano-driven song. It's fucking piano-driven. But like, when Tears for Fears gets heavy, when they feel like getting heavy, oh, it's some good shit. And Sorry is great. I really like it, especially if you're listening to the album all the way through and you have the interlude before it, because it just slams you. And it's just like, the interlude lulls you into a false sense of security, especially following Sketches of Pain. And then like when Sorry comes in, it's like someone slamming your face against the fucking desk, and it's just it's so heavy. It's so fucking heavy. I love it. Anyway, next song is called Humdrum and Humble, which is like one of the songs with like the most plays on Spotify, and I'm just like, and it's strangely catchy. It is a strangely catchy song, I will say that much. Humdrum and Humble is very catchy. I enjoy it. I enjoy how catchy it is. But it's not the best song on the album. I Choose You is next. This is not a song about Pokemon, even though this came out in 1995 during the peak of fucking Pokemon popularity. Goddamn. Anyway, I don't remember this song at all. Like, I know, like, all of these songs that we've talked about, but, like, if you'll recall back at the start of this video when I didn't even remember what some songs were like, I don't remember this song. Don't Drink the Water is okay. It's definitely a B-side from a Tears for Fears album. It's, fine. I like how it sounds. You see, the problem with this album, the biggest problem that this album has is that Roland is trying way too hard. He has a lot of vocal effects going on, and like, the thing is, he doesn't need vocal effects. He's got an incredibly dynamic voice by itself, and yet he's doing all these weird, like, G major sound effects. You know, like, he's got like 10 different, you know, tracks with his voice, and it just kind of sounds like a zombie, you know? I don't know what he's trying to do with that. But, like, he doesn't need that. He's got a great voice. God damn it, Roland from 1995. What the fuck is wrong with you? Me and My Big Ideas is next. It's fine. And then it ends on a reprise of the interlude from the start of the album. which is interesting, and it's kind of heavy when you're listening to the album all the way through. It's like, it's a very reflective moment. It is a very reflective moment. But, like, these interludes don't need to exist unless you're listening to the album from start to finish. So, like, how do you grade that? Like, as a standalone song, Everyone Wants to Rule the World is great. In the context of the actual album, you know, Songs from the Big Chair, it doesn't follow the working hour very well, but, like, it's great, and then it fades into Mother's Talk, which is a perfect 1-2 punch. But, like, when you're listening to it by itself, it's still great. If you listen to one of these fucking interludes by itself, there's no reason for it to exist. Unless you're listening to the album all the way through, which is what I recommend everyone does. So, following this album, Roland gave up on Tears for Fears. He was just like... He actually released a technically solo album. I only have 25 minutes until I have to go to work, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but both he and Kurt Smith released solo albums. Separate from Tears for Fears, even though Roland was the only guy left in Tears for Fears. He actually released a solo album. Something Cats? I don't know, dude. Something, I don't know. I listened to it one time and I was like, this is not great, but I understand why he didn't release it as Tears for Fears. And I have not listened to Kurt Smith's solo album yet, but I think he's like actually a communist. So maybe we're not gonna listen to that. Maybe we'll just move on. So 2001 rolls around. Gary Jules covers Mad World in the most stripped back and lazy way possible. And suddenly Tears for Fears is back in the public zeitgeist. And like, they haven't talked to each other in a decade, but like one day, one of them calls the other and was like, hey yo, you want to capitalize on this? And so it was that Everybody Loves a Happy Ending came out. Oh my goodness, dude. You know, the only edition that's available on eBay right now is the white cover edition. And like, look at this. Look at this. The end, dude. They really thought this was how it would end. And this was how it ended for a while. 2004. Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. This album is fun. I will say. This album is... It's so strange. Like, especially coming from Tears for Fears. It's just like, wait a minute. This is Tears for Fears? It feels like a completely different group. And I'm not even kidding. Like, it has been 9 years since the release of Roland Kings of Spain. Like, we're talking like 9 years separated from that album to this album. Like, 9 years is gonna change a motherfucker. But like, I don't have any... There's like no synths on this album. There's no synths. There was at least a little bit of synths on this. No, I completely fucking abandoned synths. It's like a completely different genre. And Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. Like, the album starts off with some real serene and kind of, you know, melodramatic instrumentation. It really does feel like you're being flushed down the toilet into, like, an entirely... It's like, you know what the opening of this album feels like? It feels like you've been flushed down a toilet and you're slowly going down the pipes. But when the actual song starts, it's like you come out of the portal into the Looney Tunes universe from Space Jam. That's the toilet that you were flushed down, and at the end of the pipe is the Looney Tunes world. It's such a weird opening. And like, it's honestly fitting. It just keeps repeating "Wake Up" over and over. And it does kind of feel like, it does really just feel like a dream. It does feel like a dream. It feels absolutely nonsensical. And boom, here we are. Tears for Fears is back. Next song is Closest Thing to Heaven, which is one of the better performing songs on Spotify. For good reason, because it's piano-led, and it's got great orchestration. Once again, like, the orchestration, if you want to harken anything from this album back, harken back to Seeds of Love, where they drop the synths and they go for a more, you know, traditional sound. Like, when you think of pop music in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think this album fits in there very nicely. The biggest problem with this album is that it released in 2004. People had moved on from this style of pop music. If this had came out in 1999, I think it would have done a lot better, because it's got that, you know, sarcastic tone that all of the pop music that Tears for Fears came out with back in the day. It's got the sarcastic tone that fit very well alongside, you know, like Smash Mouth, you know. But Closest Thing to Heaven is pretty good. It's very catchy. Now, song number 3 is Call Me Mellow, and it's funny. It's honestly funny. Remember when I said that Raul, the start of that album, kind of sounds like pop punk? This kind of seems like a pop punk song, unironically. It's got that same vibe as Advice for the Young at Heart too, where it's a very cutesy, glittery. Why do I keep saying glitterly? That's not the word. It's glitter-y. Glitter-y. Glittery pop. That, you know, is just bubblegum pop is what most people would describe it as. And I would say Call Me Mellow is that. But it's got the sarcastic lyrics that makes it a Tears for Fears song. Sighs of Sorrow is interesting. It's incredibly corny, but it sounds good, so I will accept it. It sounds very nice. It's like smooth. It's a smooth song I really enjoy. Now, my favorite song off this album is Who Killed Tangerine? That voice crack. I've been talking for an hour straight. That's the voice crack. And this is the only thing I've had to drink the entire time. Who Killed Tangerine? Everyone would describe this as basically like a Beatles tribute. And yeah, I get it. But like, I think it sets itself apart from the Beatles by being, you know, interesting. Wow, no. That's gonna cause some controversy in the comments. I have very, very much enjoyed Who Killed Tangerine because when you think it's all over, it's not over. That's like sarcasm. This entire album feels like sarcasm. It fits my personality very nice. Quiet Ones is next, which is kind of, you know, the start of the B-side. And it does start going downhill from here. This is the heaviest song on the album yet. It's very loud, very guitar driven, very, it's got the crunch going on. But, it's fine. It's nothing special. Who You Are is the first song that I'm just like... Just like, yeah, this song exists, it's fine, it's fine. Like, at least Quiet Ones is interesting. It keeps your attention because it's loud. But Who You Are is just Sighs of Sorrow again, but less creative, less smooth, and way more boring. After that is The Devil, which, for a song titled The Devil, it is pretty fucking boring. If I titled a song The Devil, it would sound like fucking Motorhead. No, this is just this last song again. And yet somehow more boring. The problem is that this song, The Devil, is followed up by Secret World. And I am going to say this right now. Secret World is the best hook that Tears for Fears ever wrote. Ever. This is the best hook. Is Secret World. And the problem is that the entire song is the hook. They were just like, oh, we wrote the best hook we've ever written. I guess we'll sing it 4 times and have one other verse. I'm dead ass serious. Are there lyrics in this booklet? No. There's a picture of them in the booklet though. Come on. Show me the lyrics. No. Nope, there's no lyrics. Nope, never mind, there's lyrics. Nope, never mind, that's just credits. Holy fuck, though! Like, okay, here's the credits. Here's the credits for these songs. Look at how much is going on. This is Secret World. Look at how many fucking credits there are. Look at this. There's violins, there's harps, there's flutes, there's a baritone saxophone, there's even a flugelhorn. Where the fuck that is. There's so many different instruments. There's so much going on in this song. The problem is that it's got one verse. And then they repeat the chorus 4 times. And they do this for 5 minutes and 12 seconds. If they'd actually written a song, that would probably be the best Tears for Fears song. But the problem is, they wasted their best hook on just a song with a bunch that just repeats it over and over. It's pure pop dribble. I'm so mad. I'm so mad right now. I'm so mad right now. This could have been the best song they ever made, but then they decided to just play the hook 4 times and call it good. Kill Them With Kindness is next. I like this song. It's kind of subdued following Secret World. It reminds me a lot of Oasis, actually. It reminds me of an Oasis song, Killing With Kindness. And kind of the dynamic between Kurt and Roland as they've gotten older and their voices have gotten a lot more distinct from each other. It definitely kind of gives that, Liam Knoll Gallagher vibe, as far as, like, differentiation between the lead singers. Lady Bird is number 11. I don't really care for this song. In the same way that I don't care for Songbird by Bee Gees, Maybe I think it's just because I hate birds. But then, you see, the problem is, I thought about that. And then I realized, wait a minute. My favorite song from, like, age 9 to age 15 was Freebird. So, maybe it's just because I'm disappointed that another song with Bird in the title can't hold up. I don't know, man. And then Last Days on Earth is a fun one. It's another one of those reflective moments where, like, the lyrics kind of take a back seat and you just kind of try to lose yourself in the instrumentation and the sound. And to think for a while, that was the end. For a while, this was the final Tears for Fears song and the final Tears for Fears album. But then, in 2022, guess what? They drop, like a hammer, The Tipping Point. Oh my god, they're back! And the chat had to convince me in one of my streams that this was a real album and not just a compilation. The Tipping Point. It's a real album. And oh my god, it's really fucking good. Except it starts off very slowly. I don't actually care for No Small Thing. I've listened to it like 5 times now, and I'm just like, maybe I'm not old enough yet. They're like in their 60s. I'm 26. Maybe when I'm 66, I'll have an appreciation for this song. But like sitting here right now, I'm like, they should have just started it with the title track, which is The Tipping Point. And it's very fucking good. When you think about it, Tears for Fears has always been about anti-capitalism and anti-war. And The Tipping Point is getting closer and closer, ladies and gentlemen, as we speak. Global politics are completely fucked, beyond recognition, and probably beyond repair. And The Tipping Point, the song, has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's actually about Roland's wife, who died, tragically and painfully. And this entire album is basically just about that. This entire album is basically just about Roland and Kurt. They're sad again. They went full circle. Everybody loves a happy ending. Happy's in the title. Most of the music is upbeat and like, oh my goodness gracious, we're all having a good time. Even the slow songs are like real sentimental and shit. But then we get to The Tipping Point and we're sad again. We've gone all the way back to the hurting and we are all depressed. Everyone is depressed. The world is collapsing at the seams. Our fucking wives are dead. Roland's is. I don't know how Kurt's doing. I think his relationship was on the rocks too when the shit came out. But, you know, it's just never-ending pain. I really like the song The Tipping Point. It's catchy. The instrumentation is great. It harkens back to the synths and like you see, the thing is that this is a complete departure from the sound of 80s Tears for Fears. But The Tipping Point brings us back full circle, like I said. It sounds like some of these songs could have come off The Hurting. If I'm not even kidding. Some of these songs absolutely could come off The Hurting. Long Time is very good. It's got like the silkiest and the smoothest hook that you've ever heard. Like, the problem with Long Time is that it's pretentiously written. The way that the like actual like verses go is that there's a piano that does very loud chords, and there's like, you know, there's a pop sound effect going on in the background, and the words are sung like da 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 da. It sounds stupid is what I'm trying to say. But then the chorus comes in, and it's like a wave of like blissful sound and like an angelic female singer that's doing the actual lines. And then like towards the end when like Kurt's his vocals come back, he's doing a silky smooth thing with like a vocal effect going on, and it sounds so fucking good. But the verses are just so pretentious. That's the problem with this music, is that when it's good, it's fucking amazing. But in between is just a bunch of pretentious, artsy shit. And I can't stand it. The next song, Break the Man. Break the Man. It sounds like something off The Hurting. It sounds like something off Big Chair. It's got the synths. We're so fucking back with the synths. But the thing is that apparently this song is about smashing the patriarchy. Okay, if it was 1985, you might have had a point. My dudes, where have you been the last fucking decade? You can't fucking hire anyone without going down a list of diversity requirement checklist shit. What are you talking about, Break the Man? If this song was about, like, breaking, like, the hardened shell of a stoic and, like, you know, man that doesn't show his emotions because he's been told his entire life that he needs to be strong and stoic and not show his emotions, that would have been incredibly deep and very fitting in the current cultural zeitgeist. But no! It's about something that hasn't been a problem since the 80s! It's frustrating! The next song is My Demons. And I'm not kidding. I am not going... This is a 100% truth from the bottom of my heart. I'm pretty sure that I heard this song before I knew that this album existed on an iHeartRadio rock station. And I thought it was by Shinedown. I'm not kidding. I thought this was a Shinedown song. Now, like, when I listen to it now, knowing that it's Tears for Fears, and you could tell, like, when they get to the bridge towards the end, that, oh yeah, this is Tears for Fears. But it sounds like something Shinedown could have released. I don't really care for it that much. I think it's a little bit on the silly side, but it's fine. It's a good song. Now, the next song, we're getting into the B-side now. Ladies and gentlemen, oh, the next song is Rivers of Mercy. Now, this song was written during the Summer of Love riots. Wow. Okay. And it's not in sympathy of the people that rioted? Wait a minute. I thought this was a left-wing band. No, this song is... It starts off with, you know, the annoying, like, spoken section and artsy-fartsy shit that's in all the songs on this album. But, like, that's just the first minute. The rest of the song is perfectly orchestrated, sounds fantastic. The lyrics are great, and they're sung well, and it's not some type shit. Rivers of Mercy is fantastic. I think this is one of my favorite Tears for Fears songs of all time. Like, it's up there with fucking Woman in Chains. It's up there with Head Over Heels. It might even be better than Head Over Heels. This song is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I recommend it every time. The rest of the album isn't that fantastic, though. It's a Tears for Fears B-side. Please Be Happy exists. It sounds a lot like all of the other songs on the album. It's kind of meandering. Master Plan is not an Oasis cover. Yeah. I don't remember much else, though. End of Night is very interesting. It's synth pop driven. It sounds like it could have come off The Hurting. It's another great one. And it should have ended on that song, but unfortunately the final song is Stay, which is not great. It's kind of brain drain pop type stuff. It's not even good pop. And then there you have it. I'm trying to speed this up because I literally need to leave in 4 minutes, and I'm probably going to run out of video on this phone. So, there you have it. That's all the Tears for Fears albums. We got through it, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like this was a better video than both the Bee Gees ones, just because I actually went track by track. But since there are so fucking many Bee Gees albums, I'm actually able to do this with Tears for Fears. So what is my official ranking? Oh man, I can't imagine what it's gonna be. The worst Tears for Fears album is Elemental! And then, the next one, Raoul and the Kings of Spain. From there, I would go with Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. And then, I would do The Hurting. Actually, I would put The Hurting below The Tipping Point. The Tipping Point is just that good. Especially for a band that's this far into their existence. And then, the real question on everyone's mind, which of these two albums do I think is the best Tears for Fears album? And it's a tough one. It really is tough. On any given day, it could change. But I just think that as far as the complete package is concerned, I think that I enjoy The Seeds of Love the most. I would give Songs from the Big Chair #2, and the #1 best Tears for Fears album is The Seeds of Love. Sorry this was such a rushed finish, but like, I've completely lost track of time, and I need to go. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in whatever it is that I do next. Bye!